everybody. Welcome to Big Blend Radio's Toast to the life of eat, drinking, and being merry. Today, we're very excited. Diva Linda Kissam, we call her the Diva. Linda Kissam is a food, wine, and shopping diva. She's a travel writer. She spends a lot of time on her boat in the summer, which can go all through Washington state waters. It could go through Canada. And this past summer, she was in Alaska as well. So she knows all about that. And when she travels in the summer, she likes to gather wine and put it on the boat safely and enjoy her wine while she's at sea. And she entertains too. And she did so with this wonderful wine that Nancy and I just got to taste today. And they're not drinking the wine, but we are, because this is amazing. Le Col number 41. And this is such an icon in the state of Washington in the Walla Walla Valley. And who doesn't want to say Walla Walla? Come on.
I love Walla Walla.
Anyway,
it should be a dance. The
but,
Walla Walla.
This wine is exceptional. You've got to go check it out. So I'm going to encourage you to go to the website, lecole.com, and that's LECOLE.com. But we've got a special guest joining us, Constance Savage from there. But Diva Linda, Diva knows the wine. This is, like I say, exceptional, right?
Yeah, I had the privilege of actually going to a virtual seminar with my IFTRA group, my writers group, International Food, Wine, Travel Writers Group, did a seminar with Le Col, and we did a virtual tasting, as I remember, and I was so impressed with the wines. I thought, I'd like to know more and I'd like to see more wines. So I asked Le Col if they would like to be the official wine on my boat this summer. Each year I pick a different winery, and and so this year it was Le Col, and huge reception. You get all sorts of people on a boat, as you do with the neighborhood or whatever. Some only drink lower end wines. They like the sugar content or the high fruit content, and some are snobs, and some are just middle of the road people. So I think it's very interesting for me to when we have these welcome dinners, goodbye dinners, hello dinners, oh my God, we got fish dinners, to
serve back to the fish.
To serve these wines. We only had one bottle of each, so it's not a whole night of this one wine, but very well received. Everybody loved it, from novice to aficionado, and that's always really nice. It's a little awkward if you serve a wine and you get the ick factor from somebody, but these showed well. They were wonderful. We're able to store them. Boats are actually a good place to store wine, because most boats have a small compartment somewhere in them that is under the water line, and you can put your wines down in that little storage hold, and it's at least as good, if not better, than a wine fridge. Yeah, it's wow. So anyway, congratulations on these wines. I love them. I thought each one of them had merit. They all showed well, tasted well, and celebrated well. So for me, this is and there've been some years where it's been a challenge. The wines we got, one year I did a cider tasting the whole time.
Oh
yeah, that's different. That was, well, who knew? But now I know an awful lot about cider now, and maybe you don't serve everyone with dinner, but anyway, the Col wines are wonderful, and what's really nice about these wines, in my opinion, are they priced well, and they're available in markets. Yay, you have good distribution. Cool. That is fabulous.
Yeah, that's when we were sitting there tasting them, going, this is something that all palates can really enjoy. I think that's because we're not snobs. I mean, no. This isn't going to happen. We run around in parks.
These wines took me on, like one wine, I'm like, okay, I'm going to the Alps. And then the red wine totally took me to Africa.
The Perigee.
I can't even explain it, but I started sipping the red wine and I was right
It's
back in
Perigee.
Africa and I'm loving it.
Wow, that's so
It's,
great.
you know what it
weird.
is? It was this,
It's weird.
I was like, okay, because we did the Chenin Blanc, the Syrah, and the Chenin
Mm.
Blanc is new, right?
Mm.
2020. The Syrah, oh God, the Syrah. God, this is the best juice ever.
It's
I don't even want to drink
Africa.
it, but I want to drink
Yay.
it, right?
It's Africa. in
And then
a
that's the
cup.
the Perigee. What
I don't
am
understand.
I saying it Perigee or Perigee?
Perigee, that's right,
Perigee.
Perigee. Yep.
And we love it because it's a blend, right?
That's right.
Got
It's
the
a big
Cabernet,
blend.
the Cab Franc. It's got the peppery back end that Nancy
Mm.
loves. Thank you, Linda,
Yep.
for teaching Nancy about peppery back ends. Because no matter what, I mean, you could eat a burger with her at a burger stand and she'll shake her butt and say it's got a peppery back end.
Great. I have to see that.
But actually, but we were saying like that would go with some really good Mexican food, or just some
Yeah.
nice, we were
Mhm.
tacos, but that we boiled it down to, she was like, it's smoky, but not like
Africa.
and I'm reading your notes and she's going, there's charcoal here, and I don't know if you should say this, but over in Africa, there was always smoke from what they were burning in the sugarcane fields, and we lived in Kenya in South Africa, and so there was a lot of that
Mm.
coffee, coffee and tea plantations, and so you'd always have this burning going on, and we also had to burn our own trash back in the day. That it was a little different, but and way back when. So there was that
Burning
smoke.
trash is never a descriptor we're going for.
No,
That's for sure.
no, but that's not what we were talking about. We were talking about more of the sugarcane and that kind of, there was just
This
that.
mesquite sort of,
Yeah.
the 18 vintage. Well, there's a lot of spiciness and dried herbs on the Perigee. So you get sort of this countryside, brambly, but garrigue, they would say in France, sort of like this dry desert air. And actually, we are out here in a high desert here in Walla Walla.
Mm.
Walla Walla, the town's so nice that they named it twice. And
like that.
you guys moved on beyond it, but the approachability of our wines is really important to us, both in terms of the taste, so in the glass, that people of all types, people at all levels, like Linda said, like it, and even experts are like, wow, there's a lot of complexity here. There's a lot of it's balanced, all the things that wine experts look for, and yet it's approachable, easy to drink. But also on price side, we like to be approachable as well. So that's really important for us at Lake Cole. We want to be a wine people are happy to drink, and they don't have to cringe because they opened a bottle and they paid so much for it, and is it the right time to open it? Like, we just want to be really approachable.
And what do your wines run from low to high?
So low to high, it starts with our Semillon, and I know that you guys also had some recent experience with Semillon, and Semillon's really important. You guys aren't tasting that today, but that's a really important varietal for us. It was the first white wine made by Lake Cole in 1983 vintage.
Wow.
So we have one of the most longstanding, most important, and highest quality Semillon programs. So Semillon, we're at 16 bucks out there, and then all the way up to our Ferguson, which is $70. So just above Perigee has a big brother named Ferguson, which is the vineyard right behind you guys. So Ferguson Bordeaux blend, again, that's our biggest blend of all. That's at 70. So that's our whole range. So that's a really
that's nice.
Yeah.
That's approachable. And that's like when we think about the holiday season, we're recording this actually even before Thanksgiving. So we're not going to play Thanksgiving today because I know it's airing in December. But for the holidays, when you think about giving a gift of wine or serving wine at the table, like Linda, you're doing these parties. We want to come to a boat party. I just want to see you even serve on a boat. Like, I just want to see you on a boat. Like,
I know
we've seen pictures, but I just want to see the boots. I want to see it in person. And then
I like the idea of a moving cellar. Like,
I know.
The wine
I want to
moving.
see. I
That
want to
has to
see
do
where
something to the
the
wine.
wine goes under the water.
I know, really.
Yeah.
I can
Under the
feel like
waterline. Yeah.
I feel like you should have this, like, fancy diva blinged out thing that people can see, like, the diva's coming, watch out.
And then she has to go
through.
shiver me timbers.
Shiver me timbers. There you are.
No, but I mean, being able to serve it and not, break the bank over it. And I think people are we were talking about this on a recent interview with, Diva Linda and Tennessee, which I saw that you put a black cod recipe in with this article, which I thought was, I'm like, she's into black cod and I've never even heard of black black cod, but black cod is everywhere now.
That's
From
wonderful.
from being up in the Pacific Northwest, and just being able to have quality and purchase, because I think people get nervous about buying wine, especially for other people or serving it. When you look at cost today of what's going on in the world, everyone's got a different situation. Everybody wants an experience, wants the quality, and wants to support a small business like L'Ecole, right? It's a small business, but big in what you've done in historically, and big and amazing with what you've done with wine. But you have to have that balance for support for the consumer to go and say, hey, we want to purchase and support, but if it's wine that's $150 a bottle each time, I'm scared. What
Yeah.
happens if it's because you can have a rogue bottle in that batch that comes out and didn't get corked properly, and then, oh, now my Thanksgiving
yeah.
dinner is screwed, or
Right.
New Year's, let me get off the holidays. But that kind of feeling is, I think people want to have that balance, and I think you hit it perfectly. I mean,
Well,
because it's
thank you.
perfect wine.
Yeah, I mean, it's respectable. Our price positioning is not, you can find cheaper wine out there for sure, and actually good wine at all price points. I mean, there's
true.
not that many bad bottles out there, but we really try to respect the customer and respect. We have a lot of very loyal fans of L'Ecole who've really grown up with us in the past almost 40 years. So
Wow.
we really want to respect that fact that we have consistency. We have a large enough scale program that we can really invest in the production to make sure we're very consistent in our quality and make the best we can every vintage. But there's a lot of Washington wineries, Walla Walla wineries, et cetera, that go stratospheric with pricing. And that's really a function of the production size as well. It might be a half an acre plot that they're making, just a tiny handful of barrels out of. And so they can get the highest prices they want to, and good on them, but that's not our model. Our model is wines to drink, approachable wines that really respect people at all price points and experience levels.
That's, I think, so important. We interviewed the creators or the founders of Barefoot Wine about 15 years ago. I don't know. I don't know, 10 years ago, Nancy. I don't know.
Something
I remember
like that.
And I thought, well, that's really cool, because Barefoot Wine really made its way onto the shelves. And reading their story, they wrote their memoir, and they'd sold the business at the time. And they wrote their memoir about this, and it was really good business lessons about getting out there. And if you want your product on the shelves, and I know it back in the day when we were print, you go and do your own delivery, because there's placement wars. And it's like,
Sure.
I have
There's a lot of bottlenecks in the system.
And a friend who has a bread delivery service, and we went out on his bread truck one day just to play, Wonder Buns versus, French Loaf Man. And there's a war. And I saw it in the grocery store this morning. Somebody's in there asking, do you have this? He goes, that's not my type of bread. I'm not delivering this. And I was like, that is so funny. Wonder Buns again.
Yeah.
But because they are bent over when they're stuffing the shelves. But
hence the name Wonder Buns.
Yeah, but there's to get that on the shelves and then be approachable, and that's how they learned about the big bottle, the 2-liter bottle thing. I think it's 2 liters. What the big bottle,
1.5 liters.
So it was like this.
Magnums.
All of that.
It's 1.5 liters. I don't know why they won't
I don't
go
know
to
any of
2,
that,
but they won't.
Yeah,
It's a traditional thing. I mean, a bottle
learning,
is 3/4, and that's a double bottle. So that's a
yeah, it's funny, isn't it?
But it's, you guys are like obviously not doing like the mass market table wine like that, but it's not you've got that, I don't know, it's perfect. Diva Linda, like, what was it that made you, Diva Linda, say, okay, let's invest the time in the tasting and doing all this with this wonderful wine, the L'Ecole wines?
Because IFTWA, International Food Wine Travel Writers Association, features their members in seminars, so that because not all of our writers know about wine. A lot of them know about travel, but wine is a whole different subject. So we concentrate quite a few on our wineries, our winery members, and L'Ecole was one of those, and it included a tasting. And I thought, I think I had the Semillon. I think maybe you guys sent me a Semillon, but there were 40 people at least that attended this seminar, which is huge. and to learn about this particular winery. And after I tasted mine, I thought, okay, so we have consistency, we have good price point, we have a good backhand story. So you probably want to say how the winery began.
Yes.
That's an interesting. And how many cases do you guys make a year now?
We're
What do you
making
want
about between 43 and 47, or right around there.
Okay, so that's a good medium-sized winery. Your boutique wineries are under 6,000, maybe 7,000, and then your medium goes up to maybe 60, and then after that, you're really starting to get in with the big boys.
Big industrial after that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Big industrial effort, which then sort of puts your wines in a different category, because you have to make so much, and if you're making so much, you're not necessarily concentrating on the different varietals that are really good. You're probably concentrating on the different varietals that sell.
So,
Right.
So there's an old adage from if you work in a wine region or have a wine shop, and it's people talk dry but buy sweet. So getting a good balance of what's going to sell versus what really makes you shine really has to be a discussion. I'm sure you guys probably you have a tasting room, as I remember. Yeah,
right.
and I don't know. Do you know what your best tasting, your best selling wine in the tasting room is?
Well, it's really interesting. Well, first of all, I'll tell you a little bit about our tasting room. The word l'école means the school in French. And we make only French varietals. So no Tempranillo, sadly, here.
sorry,
No
Nancy.
Sangiovese.
That's okay.
But we're on to the whole Bordeaux varietals, Loire with the Chenin that you've had. And basically we're in the Bordeaux and Rhone and Loire sphere in terms of the grapes we work with. So that follows on that concept of the French. We're in an area of the Walla Walla Valley that's referred to, a district that's referred to as Frenchtown. And it's very historic. There's historical markers that say Frenchtown area. And that's because the Canadian trappers were settled along the Walla Walla River, just in my eye shot here. And they settled there, and the locals and the indigenous people referred to them as, French. They were speaking French. So it became known as Frenchtown. And there was this school, this two-room schoolhouse built in 1915 out here west of Walla Walla City, here in the valley. And that school was an active school from 1915 through late 60s or early 70s, maybe 71. And then it became abandoned. And then in the very late 70s, Gene and Baker Ferguson, a local couple from town and who had deep roots, who'd been here since the founding of the valley, the founding of the city of Walla Walla, really. They saw this old abandoned schoolhouse, and it kind of called to Baker Ferguson to go there and start it as a winery. So it's a 1915 two-room schoolhouse that we have our tasting room in. Our offices upstairs in the schoolhouse here. They built the second floor of it where they lived. They were a very eccentric couple, and they moved out here, lived in the schoolhouse while they made wine down in the gymnasium and lunchroom, basically in the basement.
That's so cool.
Which we refer to as the cellar. So it's a really unique building. It has a lot of soul, it's just a landmark. It's just an amazing place to visit. So I really, really, really want you guys to come up and visit and experience Lake Cole, where it's made. And out back, so we used to make the wine down in the cellar, Gene and Baker did. Their daughter, Megan, very successful. They founded the Baker Boyer Bank, which is like a regional and now national bank, celebrated 150 years. So they come from a banking family. And it started as the Mercantile in Walla Walla before the city was like as a trading mercantile post. So their daughter, Megan, followed along in that sort of finance sphere. And she went to MIT for her master's degree, and she met a gentleman named Marty Club. And he's from Texas, where he studied chemical engineering at Texas A&M. And he was studying for his MBA as well at MIT. They met there. And she sort of like drew him in and pulled him back to Walla Walla through various different, they were in the Bay Area for a while, and came back here to help out her parents, who were starting that winery in 1983. And they did it as a retirement project, but little did they really realize a few years in that, wow, this is a lot of work
Yeah.
making wine.
No
It's physical
kidding.
labor.
Yeah.
So they were helping them out, coming home for harvest, coming home for bottling, things like that between 1983 when we were founded and 1989 when Marty and Megan moved back here and Marty took the reins on, the son-in-law of the founders. So it's we're in the second generation with Marty and Megan. And so we're in second generation and we were the third winery here in Walla Walla. Already Woodward Canyon was established, our next door neighbor. That's why I point just to my side. They were established before us. That's the small family. And then also Figgins, Leonetti, which is a very world famous brand as well. And they were also, you know, those were 1 and 2, those 2 wineries, actually, Leonetti and then Woodward and then Lake Hole. So it was kind of a time before even Walla Walla was recognized as a wine region. It wasn't really recognized till 1984. So these 3 wineries popped up, you know, year after year during that early days. And now there's 120 wineries in our little valley. So
definitely.
As a state, Washington is really, you know, people think of Seattle and coffee, right? You know, and then, but the state of Washington is really, it's kicking butt, like in wine production, I think.
There's reasons for that. I agree with you totally. I mean, I worked in wine for 23 years before.
Yeah,
I moved
your
to
background
Washington.
is pretty cool. I was reading, I'm like, dude, she's been around and she's
It
studied
was
this
very
and done
like
it.
European centric and California centric. I was in New York and working in importing and working with a very, very amazing California wineries. And I was kind of scoping out Washington. I was up here in 2012. I was up here in 2014, scoping them out. I met Marty Klebb in 2012, actually. And I never understood Washington wine until I came here and lived here, even though it was my job to kind of get my head around it and, you know, make a recommendation at my former company of developing our portfolio to include Washington. I still really didn't get it till I was here. And when I got here, you know, I got here in 2018, first day of harvest, September 1st is when I started. And I'm very lucky to be able to make a connection again with Lake Hole and come on as the general manager when the previous general manager was retiring. So it was a beautiful transition. But I began to realize just how perfect Washington is for grape growing. We're a fruit growing state. You know, it's cherries, it's apples, it's
huckleberries.
It's just perfect. The berries just burst out of everywhere, wild berries of all types. So it is really such a perfect place. And it's out here, Eastern Washington is very different. People think of Seattle, you think of the Puget Sound. It's very green and lush. It's actually like the Olympic Peninsula is a rainforest. I mean, it is evergreen state, right? But when you get out here past the Cascade Mountains, it's an evergreen. It's like a desert. It's a high desert. So people don't realize that, but that is key because this dry air, the wind that keeps the fruit very clean and healthy. We don't need to do much vineyard treatment to keep very healthy vineyards. Our soil is very drainage. I mean, it's very sandy, many soil types, but very good drainage. So you have not a lot of problems to grow grapes. And we are high latitude. So California's, you know, the regions of California are on the latitude of like Northern Africa. Actually, if you follow it around the planet, we're up here between Bordeaux and Rhone in terms of where our latitude is. So we have these very long sunny days and that photosynthesis, which is it's a light effect for ripening. It's not a heat effect, right?
So maybe not too much humidity?
Not at all. I mean, we really get 8 to 10 inches of rain a year out here in Eastern Washington. And they get 65 in Seattle. So, I mean, it is dry. So, and we get that rain during the winter.
Yeah. And down south of you, you've got the desert in Oregon and people don't realize there's sand dunes. And when you look at that part, last year we were up in Sun River. Oh no, this year, I can't keep up. Sun River area. And it was interesting going and walking in the volcano and a field of obsidian and walking up a cliff, and we had wine at the top, and it was snowing on us.
Awesome. It is awesome out here.
That craziness.
Landscape is like being on the moon out here. It's so cool. And when you speak of the obsidian, you're talking about this volcanic soil, and the entire Eastern Washington is just a humongous layer of basalt. Basalt is under everything out here. So there's outcropping certain ridges where the basalt is up more at the surface with just a thin layer of the loess soil, the dust soil.
That
So,
soil, that
yeah,
fun
that
name.
loess is really a special soil, and that's the undulating hills where you feel like you're out on the moon. That's the loess soil, and that brings really fruit forward. Like that Syrah is from a vineyard.
I love
called-
this Syrah.
Yeah, it's
Seriously.
called Seven Hills Vineyard, and it's a loess soil vineyard, and it
It's
has
a
this
lush
sort of-
soil. It's not a
Lush
lush,
is
it's a
lush,
lush
yeah.
soil
Lush
that
equals
makes a
lush.
lush wine.
Yeah, I love this because I never really put that together, but the lush vineyards do give more lush fruit. And that Seven Hills Vineyard is a lush soil vineyard, about 900 to 1100 feet elevation. And it's just, we get like cedar, always a little bit of cedar out of that. And some, Syrah wants to be very fruity and very easy drinking and no tannin, anything like that. But the Seven Hills Vineyard, we get some savory. We get black olives.
That's what I like.
Yeah.
Yeah, because otherwise it gets too sweet and it's crossed that line. And I don't I don't want to cross the line.
Yeah.
I think when you
You
get
want both,
desert
Yeah.
soils, plants have to work harder, and they do work harder. And so they take the best of the best. They're like, okay, I'm going to work that hard. I'm not putting something in my system I don't want. So they filter better than say a swamp plant who's like, I'm happy with anything.
Yeah, always
Yeah,
easy, too easy. It's
yeah.
a little harder. And what's great is that when you have this, I mean, everything would die without irrigation. So everything out here, all the fruit, apples, everything, it's irrigated. But we use drip lines. So it's like drip, drip, drip. So we can actually use that in growing the grapes. Actually, Sadie, who's a young woman, she's 38 years old, and she was just named as wine enthusiast 40 under 40. She's our vineyard manager for the Ferguson and Seven Hills. So she manages that irrigation, but she's able to deprive, really we're after doing what's called deprivation irrigation. So we want to deprive the plants and really make them work hard. But by doing that, you can literally control the berry size.
Yeah.
And you can make the berries smaller. And if you have smaller berries, you have
More sugar,
more skin to flesh. And the skin is where the colors are, the flavors are, the anthocyanins, like all the good stuff is in the skin. So if you're in a wet place, you're going to get big plump. It'll be a happy vine. It'll be lots of grapes, but it won't be very good for winemaking. So that dry desert climate we have is perfect for making high quality wine.
and I think also the plants know that there's a consistency, so they don't freak out.
Oh,
so even though
absolutely.
they're working hard, there's that consistency, whereas
Yes. You're absolutely right. Yeah. So you can just drip, drip, drip at the right times, the right amount. And then we have, as you know, from deserts and wherever you guys are in hot places, but at night it gets cool. Even it can be 105 in the day, it gets cool. So we had this past year, 2021, we had several days at 115 degrees. We have weeks at that level up here in this high latitude, but our nights get down to 62, 58, 65.
Nice.
So that diurnal, we call that diurnal temperature swing. It helps to retain the aromatics, retain the acid, and gives the vines a break. So in many regions where wines are grown, like let's say Chile, not in high elevation, but normal valley floor vineyards, or the valley floors in California, they don't really get that break at night that we have up here because of that high desert climate that we have.
I think that's why Nancy also went to Africa, because like South Africa produces some amazing wines, but there is that high desert, some coastal, depending on where you are, like Cape Town and all of that. Stellenbosch has got that. Yeah. But, there's this, even in the equator, when we lived in Kenya, there's this cycle of weather that is dependable. It's dramatic for others if you haven't lived there for a while. But I want to go to Linda on this because it kind of feels almost like Temecula to me, like what she's describing of the landscape.
Yeah, it does, as a matter of fact. Yeah, I would just say yes. I think that is correct. Have you been to Temecula?
No, I haven't. I've been a lot around California, mostly Paso Robles and the North Coast.
Like the northern side. Yeah, someday it would be good for you to go to Temecula, and now the Ramona San Diego wine trail has really been coming along and really been producing some wines. They're still finding their way. They're still finding their clones, Temecula was built as an experiment by the university to see what would grow.
Mhm.
And, you know, they had a couple hits and mostly misses. And so as the years have gone on, you know, the wineries out there now, I think there's close to 50 of them, just in Temecula alone, you know, have learned what the high heat and the low nights can do. You know, what can you produce there? You know, Grenache,
Mhm.
I think, is one of my favorites, and some of the others, so some of the white wines. And yeah, so I see a similarity there. I do. And you know, it's just about finding the right clones, finding the right vineyard management style.
Mhm.
You know, how much do you baby them? How much do you make? How hard do you make them work? Do they need to work hard? Do you need to baby them? And then once you get that harvesting, once you harvest, then what do you do with them when you bring them in? You know, do you fool with them a lot, or you just let them tell the story all by themselves? It's you know, it depends on the winemaker, as you know. It depends on your philosophy of whether you're going to be sustainable, not sustainable. Are you going to be organic? Are you going to be, you know, biodynamic?
Salmon friendly, apparently.
Yeah,
Okay, tell
actually,
us about that. That's
so that's
Yeah.
an important. as
You don't think that. You look
Yeah.
grapes, wine, and like, oh, we're salmon friendly. I'm
Why
like,
are you mentioning salmon? Well,
Mm.
obviously, you know, Pacific Northwest salmon is really important. A lot of rivers and creeks, and Walla Walla means many waters. There's tons of creeks.
Oh.
So it means waters. So lots of creeks in our valley. And something very important in the waterways of Washington is to make sure that nothing goes into them that can hurt the salmon.
Yeah.
Or other fish, but salmon is really the commercially important, let's say, fish over here. So nothing goes on the vineyards that, if it were to go into the creeks and rivers, could hurt a salmon. So it's pretty easy rule of thumb, but there are regulations about that, and it's tantamount to organic. In terms of the approaches, our winemaker Sadie, as I said, she's a young woman and she manages really important vineyards around here. Her rule of thumb is I don't want to have my vineyard workers or myself be in the vineyards and have to wear any gear, protective gear, that we want to wear our clothes and walk into our house and hug our kids.
Yeah.
So she has 2 little girls. And she's like, I want to be able to walk home, walk in my house, and be with my kids. So I'm not using anything. So it's salmon safe. It's Sadie's kids safe. It's very important to us. And it's easy to some extent to do because of the climate, because of the soil. So a conventional vineyard here gets a lot less treatment than a conventional vineyard in other places, even California, I would say. So it's just made for fruit growing out here. I wanted to talk to you really quickly about our production, because we mentioned that earlier about the sort of scale. And because L'École didn't just pop up 3 years ago at 40,000 cases, because we grew up over nearly 40 years now, Baker and Jean was making the wine. I mean, back in 1983, probably the first female winemaker of Washington.
We love this. Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
she was a chemist at heart, and her son-in-law eventually, obviously Marty's a chemical engineer. But they kind of taught themselves how to make wine, and they passed on their know-how and their approach to Marty. And Marty and the winemaker, Marty as the winemaker over the years continued to make it the same way as the production grew. So they were making it in open top, 1.5 ton fermenters with, you know, hand punch downs of the cap.
Oh, no way.
And we still do it. So we
No
have
way.
hundreds and hundreds of
Wow.
1.5 ton open top fermenters
Holy
with
cow.
like guys out there with big, you know, stainless steel
That's a big
plungers
deal.
breaking the cap.
We found that out about in Colorado, Nancy. It was
Mhm.
Restoration Vineyards, where the mom
Right.
and the daughter get in there and people can
Yeah.
see them punching
Yeah.
it down.
Yeah, you're
They're
punching
like,
down.
you want to know why we charge
It's-
what we do?
It's
Yeah,
like that
and so we
old,
do that on the scale
Yeah.
of what we are now,
Wow.
as they were when they were making 3,000 cases. So
Wow. So
it's
this
still,
is
we definitely are
handcrafted.
old school. We like to use the word old school because we're in an old
Yeah.
school, and we make things in the old school way. So we make things the way the boutique wineries make them, but we just make more of it. So it's just grown up over time. And we
Wow.
are distributed in, you know, 50 states effectively, probably 49 or 50. We might
Wow.
be short by either North Dakota or Vermont. Don't quote me on that, but think we're in roughly 50 states, and we're in 20 countries. So we grew that market
That's
also
a
just
lot.
very slowly over time, bit by bit. So everything for us
That's
is about
nice.
slow and steady wins the race. And the production grew over time, and we didn't change and say, oh, we're at this scale now, let's get this fancy new auto fermenter or something like that. Like, it's still done by hands-on, which means we bring on a lot of people for crush, a lot of kids from the local enology
That's cool, though.
program, and they get this amazing experience at like a winery of scale, doing everything in the right way. So it's kind of a place where most of the people in the valley have passed through Lake Cole doing a crush as a crush intern or something. So it's kind of a place where people come to learn as well, which resonates for us as the school.
Wow, that's cool. Diva Linda, is
I
that
love
part
it.
of, like, as you're tasting the wine, thinking about the story behind it?
It is. Just, we could do a whole show just on distribution and wine labels.
Yeah.
Why,
Well, I like the
so-
wine label with the schoolhouse on it.
Yes,
You know,
it's very
I'm like,
cute. Yes.
no, it's like you're going to go to school and
And
drink
drink
wine.
wine.
I did it when I was a kid, but it wasn't this
Hey,
wine. Let me tell
I'm
you.
sitting right
But-
here.
Well, I did. I won't say
Well, we
what
have a
we did in the
huge
classroom, but
amount of teachers that love Lake Cole wine, and
I bet.
and it's fun because we also get locals who went to school here as children
way.
who come in here and are like, oh my God, they see the little like water fountain. They're like, what? That's that small?
Does
so
it have
it's-
wine
you-
coming out of it?
No,
That's what.
that's actually
Oh,
a very
that'd
good
be cool.
idea. No, it's the original. It still spouts water. But it's definitely, you get the feel for it being a school when you come in, and we are very old school. And it's as a place, we're really about sort of the deep roots of the valley. And, there's a lot of beautiful details here in the school that when you come here, we'll kind of point them out, which will just enrich
It's nice.
enrich your feeling about the commitment that the club family has to
Is
this
number
valley.
41 the number 41 school in the
That was a
region?
district. That was the district.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh,
So that was already
okay.
here as well.
It's like a Club 41, like it's like Studio.
Did you
Uh-oh.
watch out.
Uh-oh.
None of that's going on here.
I
But
know,
Yeah.
just saying happiness.
Yeah.
But no, but I think it's
we
really
refer to it
neat.
as Lake Cole. It's much easier for everybody.
And it sounds, it sounds,
yeah.
well, yeah, Lake Cole, and you have to learn. I'm like, I'm so glad you have YouTube videos so that we can make sure we do the pronunciation right, because apparently I get it wrong all the time on anything, but to pronounce anything right. But I think this is great, Linda. I mean, like I was saying, you always find out quality, and I always love that I think you don't find quality without a backstory, and quality comes from hands-on work,
Yeah.
And I just love that there's so many more women in wine. I think there always have been, but just not been on the forefront.
Not on the
I was
forefront.
listening to your Kissam interview, and it's a relatively new endeavor. I mean, she kind of popped
9
forward
years, I think. Yeah.
with her business, Love Corkscrew, and it's a new thing, but it also is the beginnings of an amazing story. So, I mean, I think, a story can be 40 years old and it's special for that, but it can be special to discover something that's coming new. And that's something also about Walla Walla Valley is there's a lot of, I would say, a positive and welcoming and open spirit of producers here. So when new wineries want to start here in Walla Walla, and a lot do. I mean, it's growing year by year. There's new wineries, but the old guard or the pioneers like Woodward, like Lake Cole, Leonetti, and Pepper Bridge and Dunham, and all these wineries, there's a very big spirit of open cellar door. Come and learn, taste our lots with us. Do you need to get fruit this vintage? What are you doing? And new producers who come here, I know them personally and friends with many of them, are like, this is unlike anywhere in the world that you would come. And wineries are just urging you to do great, make great wine, do well, learn everything you can, lean on us. There's a big spirit of, because I think it's because we're so isolated. We're really like 4+ hours from anywhere. So we're out here on this little oasis of loveliness, of wonderful food and restaurants and wine and spirits. And we all know each other in this small industry of 100+ wineries.
That spirit of cooperation is what's going to make you a huge destination. Because
Mhm.
if you're
People
all
feel it when they
backbiting,
come.
yeah,
Yeah.
if you're backbiting and fighting, we've lived in a small town where everybody was backbiting and stealing each
Makes
other's
good
business
scandals.
signs, and and they had at one point been a good destination, and they subsequently started to go down a bit because of the backbiting. So when everybody works together, I mean, if you're a wine lover, you're going to stay long. The more wineries there are, the longer you're going to stay.
Yeah.
And the
It's
more
a
you're gonna,
big deal out here
Yeah.
in Walla. We call it the Walla Walla Way. And
Oh.
it's to help lift people
Nice.
up. And for example, we have our holiday dinner coming up in the mid-December for our whole team. And we're having wines from other producers on the table. We're having
See, that's
all these
great.
neighbors
Jessica
of
can say
ours.
what's going on. Yeah,
and
too.
I've been in touch with them. Like, do you have some older vintages? You have what can we buy to put on the table to share with our staff, a way to show how proud we are of our neighbors, and
That's
how much we
cool.
believe in them too. So
That's
there's
very
really a
cool.
wonderful spirit. And the old guard, I would say, Lacole, Woodward, Leonetti, and a few others I mentioned, they set that pace, they set that tone. And
Nice.
it's an important thing for us. And it's about being really confident in the Valley, and that there's room for everyone. And not everyone's doing Bordeaux and Rhone varietals like us. There's others doing really, Italian varietals. There's others doing other things. There's people going at all different angles in terms of wine style. What's important to us is that everybody tries to do the very best quality they can.
Yeah.
We want to be able to refer people when they go crazy for our Syrah, which when we pour it in the tasting room, it goes crazy. Like, people love that Syrah, estate Syrah.
Yeah.
We have
When
to
I
be
saw-
careful sometimes
Even
not
when
to
I
pour
saw
it for
it
too
arrive,
long.
I was like, I saw the Syrah and I'm like, I'm eyeballing this. This is my thing. I want
Yeah.
the Syrah.
Well,
and
we
get
just
it
make
on
two
the tasting-
Syrahs. So
No, but-
when people go crazy for our estate Syrah in the tasting room, our team knows to talk about their own personal experience of other wonderful Syrah and be like, if you love the Syrah, you should really go here as well. You're going to love it. They specialize in Syrah. So there's a lot of interplay, and we encourage our tasting room team to get out there, go tasting locally. As a team, they go out, and we want that cross-pollination, and we want people to just display their passion for the wines. So it's a good
That's
thing.
nice.
I'm really happy to have moved here from New York, because New
Well-
York is not that friendly.
I wanted to touch on that. And also, before that, I want to say that you got Diva Linda enjoying Chardonnay again. And I know that Diva Linda's picky about Chardonnay. Well, she's a diva, so she can be.
Yeah. Chardonnay is not my favorite. I find it difficult to pair with some foods and so forth. I'm more of a Chenin Blanc person. And I don't know what happened to Chenin Blanc. Not a lot of people make it anymore, but
No, they don't.
Find it,
You're
when
right.
I find one, that's good, like this one, I hold on to it. And I love Sauvignon Blanc. I love anything that has a New Zealand profile or a mineral, anything with mineral, like a minerally. So yours was great.
too.
I really think if you were going to bring a hostess gift and you didn't know what to bring, but you wanted to bring wine, the Chenin Blanc or the Syrah. So if you know your people aren't big wine aficionados, the Chenin Blanc's a good baby step entrance, good quality, good price point. There isn't going to be any, oh my God, ick factors. People are going to love it. If your people are a little bit more sophisticated, bring that Syrah. And you're going to impress them with your knowledge of a good, solid red wine. So as you said, these Syrahs can go overboard, as can Zins. They can just. It just depends on. You get out there in the fields and you're looking for a specific bricks level, and one day you look at it and you're almost there, and then you go back the next day and holy shit, it's just gone. It's, it's just taken off. I don't know. Now it's gone from kind of a lean, peppery kind of wonderful Syrah to some
Jammy monster.
Yeah, jammy
They can be
monster.
jammy monsters, that's
But
for sure.
there's a market for jammy monster. I will
Yes,
tell
there
you that.
is.
I know that well. But if you were hoping on Thursday that if you pick on Friday it's going to be a little more lean, then and it bounces on you. It's just awful. I remember that from my director days. We would when they were picking, if it didn't go well, they came into my office and sort of marched around the producers and they go, oh my God, yesterday was at 14 bricks and my God,
Yeah.
today it's at 18.
The bricks are off the chart. That's right.
Off the chart. Oh my gosh, we're going to make a whole different kind of wine. So I don't know. Your consistency from wine to wine is wonderful. And I just think that was 2 recommendations for me for you all, is that when you choose wines for people, especially who are new to the wine journey, their palate hasn't progressed yet. It's very much like chocolate. Do you remember when you were young and you loved Hershey bars, and that was like the best chocolate in the entire world, until somebody at a later stage introduced you to Godiva, and then at an even later stage,
Dark chocolate and salt.
Yes, and pretty
Sea
soon,
salt
pretty
and
soon,
dark
you know,
chocolate and red
so
wine.
you certainly
is
don't bring a
yummy.
Hershey bar to
Right.
a sophisticated house. So what I'm saying is, if your hostess maybe they haven't really had a lot of wine in their life, the Chenin Blanc I think was so good. I just really enjoyed it.
There's
Thank
the ending of that, the finish, as I should say. There's like a light toffee, like fruit, like it's like there's this finish to it that I'm like,
Well, there were 2 things that Linda said about the
Ooh.
Chenin that really resonated that I wanted to expand upon. One is that I am a Chardonnay girl. I grew up, let's say, in the industry drinking Burgundy, so the very best of all.
you're not
Chardonnays.
allowed to say Burgundy.
White Burgundy was my thing, and I still have quite a bit of white Burgundy in the cellar. But I came out here to Washington. L'École makes Chardonnay. We make a Semillon and Chenin. So we make 2 very unique and distinctive whites. So Semillon and Chenin, and Chardonnay, which is like, Chardonnay is the biggest white varietal in the world in terms of market. But I grew up on Burgundy. So the Washington Chardonnays, no matter how fantastic they are, don't really hold a candle to Grand Cru White Burgundy or Premier Cru. But I tasted our Chenin, and I tasted it over the years back in New York. I've been tasting L'École as sort of a standard bearer for Washington. And I'm like, this is such a special wine. And I get here, and Perigy's my darling red that I love, and Chenin is my darling white that I love. And it's just it's meant to be in the Vouvray style. So the Loire Valley, many grapes are grown there, and one of them is Chenin. And the Vouvray style is dry, but it's intense and it has an unctuousness. And I think that's what you're talking about, Lisa. It's sort of like this richness on the finish.
So the finish, it just, you kind of want to, you're like, ooh, that
you're
makes,
like, this is a little more than just the easy drinking, bright and fun white wine.
No, but there's this little bit, like you suddenly want to have a little dessert with it, but not like a,
it has a body to it, and intensity. And this, and you talked about, Linda, this sort of picking sensitivity about when you reach ripeness, don't let it go too far. And that's really a concern with Syrah. This Chenin is from 3 very old vineyards. They're planted in the late 70s in Yakima Valley, which is the white wine region, the best white wine region of Washington. And so these 3 very old vineyards, so the label itself says old vines, and it is old vines, but these old vineyards, they are so consistent that they can hit ripeness and then they just hold. We pick the Chenin almost last of the season. We can fit it in wherever we want to, because the old vineyard, the old vines have this, they get to their balance and they just are they're steady. So it's really amazing.
They must be a Taurus, Nancy.
Hey, I'm a Taurus. So they're like, boom, they hit what they need to be, perfect, beautiful fruit, and they hold. And it's really unique about our Chenin vineyards. And you talked about there used to be a lot of Chenin. This is one more thing I wanted to say. There did used to be a lot of Chenin, and it was a lot in California, a lot in Washington. It was actually used for bulk wine, because you can grow young vines of Chenin to a lot of fruit, plump, huge yields, but it got ripped out over the years everywhere in favor of Chardonnay mostly. So those bulk wine programs, kind of that Gallo Chablis in a jug was probably a lot of things, including bulky Chenin. But these old vineyards, we started making the Chenin Blanc from those vineyards in 1987. And they were only, 8 years old at that time, those vineyards, which is a great age for vineyards. But those vineyards would have probably been ripped out a long time ago if our Chenin Blanc program didn't continue to sustain
Wow.
the fruit from there.
Are they,
So
are they
that's-
head pruned? Are they head pruned or?
You know what? That's a great question, Linda. I'm not even sure. I think it's pretty much a head prune vineyard because they're kind of a wild.
Because of the age?
Yeah.
Because of the age
Yeah.
and the
Yeah,
older,
I have not
Ooh.
physically been up in those vineyards, it's high elevation vineyards, but I love this wine. And
I bet
it
it's head
is,
pruned.
and
Yeah.
those vineyards would have
Yeah.
been ripped out in
Wow.
favor of something else.
See, now Diva Linda, I see you with shears going out.
I know.
Like, let me take care of this for you.
It's like,
I'm like, that's it. You're gonna get
Yeah,
pruned.
seriously.
Yep.
But
No,
the
like,
yields
you
are
know-
very low. The trade-off is on the, I mean, our yields are generally low overall out here, but per acre, in terms of tons per acre, but the older vineyards are even, lower,
Mhm.
even
Even
lower
more
and
so,
lower year
yeah,
by year.
yeah.
So
It
Yeah.
makes them special.
that's the tough
Yeah.
part. So it's not an infinite production that we can make.
Mhm.
It's not a single vineyard per se, but there's only these couple old vineyards, so a few old vineyards that we're working with for the Chenin.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
My grandmother used to tell me when it comes to harvesting fruit and vegetables in the garden, no matter what they are, you had to watch the insects and the birds. And they
Mm.
tell you when to go pick. And
Oh,
so you
yeah.
got to watch them.
Yep.
And when the birds start sitting on the wires, you got to go pick
Mhm.
before they decide to fly down.
They're about to get it.
And the insects always come in before the birds. And so the birds are waiting like, do I want the grape or the insect?
Mhm.
So they're sitting up. That's her story. And so I think when it's time to pick, you got to be watching the birds and the insects.
One thing we don't get much up here is insects, to be honest. So
Yeah, because the high
That's cool.
desert.
the high desert, it's very dry. They have a hard time, the diurnal swing of temperature. And something different, you were mentioning Temecula before, and I think of Lake Walla Walla is very similar to Paso Robles as well. But a different thing that we have is we have the very cold winter where we get down to a deep freeze. So that deep freeze kills off a lot of
insects.
stuff
Yeah.
that could be bad or that could bloom over time in terms of either fungus or insects in the soil or things like that. So that's kind of like cleans up the vineyards every year. When
Yeah,
we get
that's
a
cool.
nice
That's
deep
cool.
freeze, and it puts the vines into a deep dormancy as well, so they reserve energy. So it's really a special place for vine growing.
What I want to
Cool.
do, and we kind of have the possibility to do this next year, Nancy. I know it's kind of possibly is well, because we were up in Erie, Pennsylvania last year and went tasting,
Cool.
and we were close to Buffalo, so Lake Erie and that whole
Mhm.
area, and you could see, and it's also where Welch's grapes are grown. So you're
Mhm.
surrounded by vineyards, and most are Welch's, and there's vineyards, and a lot of the vineyards, like who we were with, Courtyard Winery, they created an association, all working together, like you're saying. But part of them are actually working for Welch's too, and so they actually own part of the company. It's a whole other.
Oh, like
I
a
did not know
cooperative.
Welch's.
Yeah.
Yeah, Welch's
Yeah,
is pretty
neat.
cool.
I didn't know
Had no
that.
idea. But the Welch's basically is funding the vineyards for wine.
Yeah.
And
Oh, neat.
like now I'm going to say everybody drink Welch's. They're good.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
but
Oh,
they were
great
doing
news.
it. But you're up there in the vineyards and you could look out and see, the waters of Canada, like you were talking
Mhm.
about. You can see
Neat.
Canada. And so I was just thinking about these wine trails and how interesting the geology of this whole ice trail. Like if you go I know Stacy Wittig, Diva Linda, she's part of IF12 with you, travel writer. She just did the Wisconsin ice trail. She hiked it. Yeah, she is a badass, but she is, and she'll let me say that with her hiking. But the geology going from the Midwest, which I find the Midwest quite fascinating. We haven't done New York yet, but we've been just even 2 weeks ago, I could have just walked across the border, but didn't because I didn't. I was cold. I'm going home. But it would be interesting, Nancy, when we're up in the state of Washington. I know we're going to do some cross country to kind of do wineries along the Canadian border across the country.
So there's
I'm
a region up
thinking
there,
about
and
that.
I think Linda's mentioned it about BC up there, British Columbia. So just across the border here, up north of Eastern Washington, so east of sort of Vancouver and city and stuff, there's a wine region up there it is in the same high desert. It kind of pokes up into to Canada there. So they have the similar climate that we have. But, you know, when you want to talk geology and wine climates and wine terroir, there's just like nothing as interesting as Washington. I mean, there's like, when you get up here and you see some of these parks with the, I mean, we had this cataclysmic late ice age Missoula floods. So that is something really important also for us. So you heard about Luss. So Seven Hills Vineyard, Luss Vineyard, Lush Wines. I love that. Our Ferguson Vineyard, which is this outcropping of the basalt, fractured basalt, volcanic, black volcanic
Why do
soil.
I want to go eat dirt right now?
Oh my God. So this basalt, like you can taste it in that wine. It's iron.
See?
It's like blood. So it's amazing. So, but there's a third soil type really important in Eastern Washington, which we refer to as alluvial flood silt. So it's a desert. So the word flood doesn't really resonate that well until you realize that there was this huge ice age lake, which was called there was a dam on it called the Missoula, Great Ice Age Missoula Lake. And there was a ice dam, and it broke many, many times in the late ice age as things would melt and crack, and it would wash all the way through Eastern Washington. 1,200 feet in elevation wall of water, more than all the rivers in the world combined, and try to get out through the Columbia Gorge out to the Pacific. And so it would leave behind strange, erratics from the big pieces of ice with pieces of granite stuck in it. And it would bank it up around 1,200 feet elevation. So that's why we know that happened. But as it would wash out, it would leave this like sandy erratics of sandy alluvial flood silt. So that's the floor of our valley, is this alluvial flood silt. So we have vineyards on the floor here from that third soil type, and those are like spicy structured wines. So in our little valley, we have the Luss, we have the alluvial flood silts, we have the fractured basalt, and we have a fourth one called the rocks. So it's like old cobblestone riverbeds that are now dry, but those are basalt, but cobbles, like in the Rhone Valley, like rounded stones. And those were orchards for hundreds of years. They've been orchards, but now they're converting over time into vineyards. So you get a totally different type of flavor from those vineyards. But the geology out here in Eastern Washington is just awesome. It's new. It's sort of new soils in a way because of all these amazing things that had happened in the climate out here.
If they taught geology to kids this way, like this is
they'd be
chocolate,
interested.
this is peanut butter, they would get into geology, because geology does rock, man. I'm sorry. Hashtag geology rocks is one of my favorite hashtags. It is. I want the hoodoo wine. That's what I want.
So cool.
How about fractured basalt? I like that. That sounds like
that
a
sounds
wine
like,
label.
sounds like a band name to me, actually.
Yeah. So you have to taste our Ferguson to taste fractured basalt, and it is something really awesome. And just high elevation volcanic vineyards is really a special thing on the planet. I mean, there's some in Sicily, there's some all around the world in different high elevation volcanic soil, and they have this sort of power, but this brightness at the same time, high natural acidity. So there's a hugeness of structure, but freshness at the same time. They're really awesome.
Oh man, this is cool. Diva Linda, look what you brought onto the table.
Oh man, I think Linda, we have to make sure you get some Ferguson, because
you rock.
I would like that. I'm a big fan of volcanic wines.
Good.
I am. I think that it provides an earthy richness in very simple terms, an earthy richness that you can't find with any other soils. It's very hard, at least it was where I was, to farm, because it's a volcanic.
It is hard. It's true.
I mean, you have to be patient, and you have to have the right equipment, and it's not as pretty. And but the results for the reds are unbelievable.
It's unbelievable power.
You
and
know,
minerality like this, what we get graphite, so it's almost like a lead pencil in there.
Yes.
And then just this power and
see, there's the charcoal in there too. I swear.
Yeah.
Because
that's why I went to
that.
Africa in my mind.
Yeah, it is
me
about
to,
that.
like, I feel like I'm sitting on the veranda watching elephant and antelope, and
neat.
you can smell the wood fires of the tribals down below over there, and you know what kind of wood they're using to make their dinners. that totally took me right there. I was like, whoa, what you
Wow.
put in there?
Now I want some Boerewors.
It's 100% grapes. That's
I know.
It's amazing though.
But this is lovely. I mean, even talking about volcanic wines, I think also what you said, Diva Linda, about doing a show on distribution, we could do a whole panel on this. And I think I actually want to do one about geology matching the wines, because what we
Yeah.
have discovered traveling is that wineries seem to do well in mining areas that are, profit from old gold mining towns like Julian,
About
right? Julian,
minerals.
Ramona. San Benito County up in Central California. So you're going east of San Francisco.
Mhm.
That area, like Calera was in
It's
there.
growing, yeah,
Calera makes amazing Pinot Noir.
Mhm.
And he was like, he studied in Burgundy, France, and he was like, it's all about lime, 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 lime. But then what you guys are talking about with this volcanic part, you got to think Pinnacles National Park is right next to his winery, and you're looking at it's on the San Andreas Fault. They even have a geology walking tour. We can
Wow.
see where the earth is shifted. So I'm wondering now, like, it's not just going to be the limestone that's kicking butt. It's going to have to do
Minerals.
with the volcanic
Yeah.
drama that has happened in Pinnacles, like,
Yeah, I think
in the
the
Gavilon
varieties
Mountains.
want what they want. So Chardonnay and Pinot, they want calcium content. So they want the limestone. This volcanic, it has manganese, magnesium, calcium, iron. It has all these things
It's
in it.
very good for you.
And the vineyard, yes, let's say it's very healthy for you.
All of us ladies
Take your
mid-age and
minerals.
older should have our wine.
But the grape, unlike anything else, is able to get in and extract these things and bring it forward in the fruit. I mean, those compounds are actually in that fruit. Like the fruit wants to present everything it can from the soil. So it's the grape is a magical thing, really, when you think about it as for a fruit. When you're smelling apple in a Chardonnay, it has the compounds that apples have. That's what you're smelling. So
Yeah.
it's just magic to me. It's magic. And
Well,
the
it's
different
interest-
soils
yeah.
and terroirs making, same variety grown 300 feet lower in Seven Hills Vineyard versus 300 feet higher, literally adjacent to each other. They taste so different. And it's really, what's the soil doing? What's the aspect doing? What's the wind drainage? These little things can make, and we make all the wines basically the same. They follow the same track.
See, that's so wild. When we were in
they bring
Colorado,
forth those differences.
yeah, West Colorado was in that area, because you're up in the by a Monument Valley, not Monument, Colorado National
Junction.
Monument area by Grand Junction and
Yes.
Palisade and this whole western, it
Yes,
is known as
very
Colorado's
interesting.
wine country. You could go to a winery next door there that could be producing the same wine, and it is 100% different, both really up there. I mean, that was probably one of the most surprising places we've ever been in regards to wine. And it had to do with the river, and then also the geology again. And they had these the high desert cliffs, and did you get an airway coming through here versus this one's closed off and you got more swampy moisture from the river over here. Everybody was so different in these micro climates. And that is what's so important about going and purchasing from smaller family, small business. Doesn't have to always be family. It's family, run with you guys too, which is great. Family business. But when it becomes this huge corporation that just goes in, we're going to plant A to Z. This is take over the land. You lose that connection with the microclimate, and the microclimate is everything.
That's the
and
taste.
It is everything, not just in taste, but for our own health. It is everything for those purchasing and enjoying. That is sustainability. It's not
two
always
different
about
industries, really. There's the
It is.
commodity
It's
side.
Two different.
Yeah.
And both, and they both
I
should
agree.
exist, and they both have their reason. But
So
it is really like small boutique wineries or different regions where we're really paying attention to every vine, and is different than commodity production, but commodity production has its place as well.
Yeah, it was there for
sure.
a reason. Sorry, Nancy.
I was just going to say, so basically we're tasting the earth right here.
That's right.
Yeah,
It's liquid. It's liquid sunshine.
Yeah. In my previous life as an importer, I was up in Spain. I was looking around at wineries, and I had this, there were these old vineyards that had gone defunct, and just the old people in that region, it was Bierzo region, had kind of let the vineyards go. It was too much work, high elevation, very steep. They let them go. But some young people came in and started to try to make the best of those vineyards.
Tempranillo, Nancy.
Yeah, in this case, it happened to be Mencia was the grape, which is it was a volcanic soil there, and it's like Pinot Noir a little bit, but they show the terroir a lot. But I had this overwhelming feeling when I went in the cellar of these barrels of wine. They're expressing appreciation, that they get to show what they can be, rather than the local plonk in town where you just turn on and get it into a jug, and it wasn't managed really. It was just not even treasured in any way. But like the wine itself brought forward a feeling of being appreciated for what it was, or for what it could be, its potential. And that was like one of the 2 or 3 times in my career, almost 30 years now, of having this sort of vibration coming off of wine. And Ferguson does that to me. The Ferguson wine itself feels that way to me. Like it's going like, look what I can be. Because it was very hard, like Linda said, it was hard to establish that vineyard at 1,450 feet with 18 inches of soil on top of miles of basalt. Very poor soil, very forbidding, windy up there all the time. So it was a rough place to establish a vineyard, but those grapes want to show how strong they are, who they can be, what they can be, and you can feel it. Like there's certain wines give off a real soul. I think our Chenin does that too at the other end of the spectrum. It's not $70, it's 17, but it can do the same
just
thing.
Such a good wine. Well, all your wines are good for gifting, for having at your own table. You have a wide range of prices, and I think you have 2 labels, a white and a black. Is that
so
right?
The white label's Walla Walla Valley, and the black labels are Heritage Line. So it has like Yakima, Horse Heaven Hills, other AVAs from around.
A little more expensive, I think, probably. Yeah.
The white label Walla Walla ones. Yep, that's our home valley. That's right.
Awesome.
So, I think. I just think this is a good find. It certainly was well received on my boat this year. 2.5 months of running around Alaska.
Boating with Nicole.
Boating with Nicole. Yes, I got some good pictures of the grand welcome party and so forth. And it just, thank you very much for sending that. I do appreciate it, and my guests appreciate it. It's always nice to serve good wines that people don't go, oh, twigs and vines. Ooh, oh, what did we get there? Okay, yeah. Or, it doesn't taste too acidic. It's like broken tea. So anyway, you're
good
great.
Stuff. Cheers to you all.
Job.
Thank you. Thank you, Diva Linda.
Thank you.
Thank you, Constance, and
It
everyone.
was wonderful meeting you guys. I've really enjoyed your wine focused programs, especially I learned a lot about regions I otherwise would not know about even.
Oh,
so
good.
You guys are really, you have great conversations. So I really appreciate being able
We're
to
always
meet you
learning.
guys.
We're always learning.
We are.
I mean, always, because it is so, like today, you taught us so much. And now I just want to go out and eat Florida dirt. No, maybe not.
Don't do that.
There's a bunch of ibis have pooped out there. I don't want to do that.
No, eat the flowers instead.
Yeah, we'll eat the
Eat
flowers.
something
But we have your wine, and we're going to go finish the Syrah now. But everyone, again, the website is lacole.com. Diva Linda's article talking about the wines, also her pairing notes, and also the recipes we were talking about. That is up on Blend Radio and TV.com. Just type in Lacole, and that's LECOLE. You'll find it there. And you can follow Diva Linda. Go to allingoodtaste.info, and when she's out boating around the Pacific Northwest, go to her website, pnwtourist.com. And of course, you can keep up with us at bigblendradio.com. We air daily, except for holidays. So major holidays.
I can't even imagine. Oh my gosh, you guys are really something.
Like I said, thank you for the wine. No, but I mean, it is, it's just, we're daily, we've got our live shows once in a blue moon now that are real special, but it being on the road 100%, we record a lot, and then we have some special shows coming up. You're going to be with us, Diva Linda, on our big anniversary shows coming up January 3rd and 4th. We have our 25-year celebration of Big Blend.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
We'll be partying. So we're looking forward to that. So lots of stuff coming up. Thank you all and take care. Thank you, listeners.
Bye, guys. Thank you so
Bye.
much. Cheers.